Greeting to all of you dear ones. I hope you're all well. It makes me happy and proud to be in your company. For me, it's a pleasure to be able to talk about art here. Art is the same thing that transforms a dead soul into a living soul. The same mirror of truth and the same warning trumpet. Art is the only earthquake that can create. First destroy and build again. Art, conscious awakener. Art is a subjective, internal, individual thing that becomes a collective thing. Few things can be found among all the fields that go from the individual to the collective and return to the individual again. For a more precise understanding of art, I would like to first talk a little about human and his or her mental world. After my recent experiences in life and facing problems in my mental world that seemed difficult, I realized more about the complexity of the human mental world. A world that is 8 billion times bigger than the earth and at the same time smaller than a giraffe. When human realize that he is alive and lives in a world that is smaller than a world of the collective mind, he may embrace extreme individualism. Human knows that if he can know his own mental world, his own identity, and in general his own ego, he has done something great. Because accurate understanding of oneself, even this, which is the simplest kind of understanding in the mental world, is difficult. You can understand how impossible it is to understand another, even if they are the closest people in human life. To understand the mental world of others, one must experience things that are not possible in this world. Living instead of others, bearing pain with their body, and smiling with their lips. I can never feel your pains and joys as deeply as you did, and you can never understand me as deeply. We understand, but we do not feel it, because I'm not you and you're not me. The mental world is a big ocean, and our minds are almost dead fishes that the current of the water directs them in every direction. The main difference between us and animals is relative self-awareness. The words of Jose Ortega y Gasset have always inspired me. We do not know what is happening to us, and this is precisely what is happening to us, not to know what is happening to us. Now let's assume that we know what is happening to us, only ourselves. There's another problem, and that is, we do not know what is happening to the other. And this is precisely the reason why our reaction to the situation of the other is depoliticized and somewhat indifferent. The relative recognition of the other makes us react more, just like animals and Neanderthals. They know their tribe more and naturally considered it more important. First, absolute individualism and then tribalism was the issue of Neanderthal human or animal, which is an instinctive matter. In fact, that tribalism has also served individualism. I feel that human is still involved in these concepts. I agree that a person should be the most important person in his mental world and in the objective world. But indifference towards another is seen as immoral. It is a big mistake to believe that the other is less important than us, because he or she is comprehensible. We are not as important as he is not important. We are as important as he is. Only we do not know exactly this importance. This is where art comes to our mind more than anything else. When I was younger, my goal in art and writing was to write to change the social structure, change people and their thoughts. I think many artists had the intention of changing people at the beginning. I slowly turned into an ant. I found myself unable to change the world. And then I realized that changing the world literally is not an artist's duty. Changing the world, although it seems simple in youth, gradually reveals its difficulties to the artist. The world slaps the artist hard to make him understand that the world is too complicated to change. Change is something for which there is a desire to change. Transformation is not possible without the desire to transform. Global politics in the media has brought humans closer to animality than ever. Instincts are brilliant and should be paid a lot of attention to them. But staying at that level keeps a person away from building a better situation and brings him to a certain smallness. The vulgarity of absolute hedonism and indifference to everything has created a sea of depoliticization in which a person drowns whether he wants it or not, and art is the piece of wood that can be reached for salvation. In a world where the border between art and vulgarity has become narrower than a hair, and people see pseudo art everywhere they look, it is hard to find good art. Now let me tell you my current opinion about art. In my opinion, good art does not intend to directly change the world, nor does it intend to shout out an idea, an ideal, nor does it even intend to describe good or condemn evil. Good art aims to represent, narrate, and that's enough. Narrative makes the more real manifestations of truth clearer. What is the truth now? Is the truth an absolute thing that can be reached in the objective world? I think not. When we talk about humans, we are talking about a bunch of emotions, feelings that exist in the human mind and psyche. Human as a person is an unknowable being but he can be known to some extent. Art is the birth certificate of the unknown identity of human. It can be concluded that the artist brings his mental world into the objective world with the tool of art and exposes his unknown identity. It is true that the statement, me is the other person, can be considered brilliant, but often, me is a more recognizable face than what I create. Is more correct, I think. The footprint of every artist is evident in his works, and every artist has his own life with a unique past that affects his art. Humans are impressionable and effective. Sometimes this impressionability is obvious in the family, environment, and acquaintances, and sometimes in the society. The family itself is a smaller community on the scale of the global community. A city, and a country is a small community on the scale of the earth. Of course, bigger than a family. Human is influenced by all external factors, and he himself, who is the external factor of others, becomes the influence that others accept, intentionally or unintentionally. Now, according to the job and social status of people, the influence will be more or less. But I feel that the artist can affect the inner emotions of others the most. This influence, because it is a more comprehensive type of influence, requires an understanding of the form and an understanding of the global community or whatever community the artist wants to represent. To understand these two important things, he must first be a good impressionable, a conscious one, having a correct understanding of his own life situation and that of others. An artist should always be ready to experiment. He should always wear combat clothes and not to be afraid of facing new events and experiences. He should maintain his identity as an artist, but go towards new experiences because new experiences will make him more of a transcendent artist. An artist can achieve such excellence by thinking deeply about even superficial issues that is astonishing. An artist must learn and practice thinking well. That is the time when even a glass falling from a man's hand in a crowded cafe can lead him into a world full of precious diamonds of different mental world experiences. He must learn to imagine and live instead of others. Imagining yourself instead of another and imagining another instead of yourself helps a lot to know the other. The more the artist imagines others, the more he knows the society. He seems to have walked in other people's shoes and seen the world through other people's glasses. From one point on, he becomes society himself. He can become millions of people. So far, I have said that the artist is incapable of directly changing the social construction, but he can indirectly change the world. Representation is the revealer of truths, and the artist, from the moment he understands that the world is this and continues, is the beginning of this pure and risky art. Now let's talk a little about the social structure and the world in which we live. Let's now look at these issues like a sociologist with regard to statistics. Excuse me. If we want to state the most important issues of the world in which we live, we should probably mention global poverty and the lack of global justice, climate change, non-compliance with human rights in many countries, wild capitalism without regard for people and society, political tyranny, and from my point of view, an empire of lies. These are all very big stones as old as history and mankind. His hands are not strong enough to destroy them. According to United Nations estimates, approximately 734 million people live in absolute poverty, extreme poverty. According to UNESCO data, for the academic year ending in 2018, about 258 million children and adolescents are out of school. In total, 59 million children are of primary school age, 62 million children are of lower secondary school age, and 138 million children are of upper secondary school age. Global warming is one of the other environmental problems of the world, which due to the emissions of carbon dioxide, which according to the United Nations has increased by 50% since 1990, has aggravated the phenomenon of climate change, which is followed by phenomena such as drought, forest fires, and floods threaten the survival of millions of people, plants, and animal species. Problems of air pollution and its impact on health, deterioration of the oceans, and increase in plastic waste, problems related to energy, sustainable food supply chain model, biodiversity, water scarcity, waste management, and etc. Mass executions, lack of attention to simple human rights issues in many countries, civil wars, and the sale of weapons and trade in human lives by superpower countries, the existence of more than 10 active wars in the world. These are just a part of the situation we are living in. How are you? I remember the words of Stalin. One death is a tragedy, and millions death is a statistic. In a world where due to the development of the internet and social media, people have access to more vulgar and sublime information than ever before, perhaps the most engaging thing for the masses is entertainment, which is the most instinctive and basic text or content. Just as silence is full of unsaid, shouting is also full of unheard. Filling up with text is actually emptying out of text. In a world deeply involved in neoliberalism, postmodernism, the death of truth, and social nihilism, it is difficult for an artist to make his voice known to the world. It's always been that way, but now I feel like it's more than ever. It is a mistake to expect an artist to cause social change. Good art is associated with taking risks. And social art in today's conditions enters into battles that it may have the sense to fight, but it does not have the ability. It's bittersweet. But let's be honest. The tank is stronger than the pen and overcomes it. This is also true for human rights activists. Human rights activists, artists, and many others fight to create better conditions, but suddenly with a war or a tension or whatever, everything is destroyed. Check out Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, and other countries. Art is not like politics, where a politician can bring about change without even paying attention to anyone. The artist must have his audience and have the attention of the masses of people to bring about a change. Deep art often does not have a very large audience. As a human being, he often does not like someone to bring up the truth in front of him. It is better to focus a little on social art. I will divide it into two parts. There are two types of views in social art. First view from above. I consider this socially conservative and sometimes even immoral art, an art that looks at human from above. The artist's gaze, like that of a political leader, lacks emotion. It's as if you look down from the top of the tower and people are ants with their own actions. The statistical information that shows the human being scary from above, statistics of drug use, theft, rape, and other immorality. A judgmental, narcissistic art that examines man by his actions and not by the cause and the past. It is not deep because it does not believe that human is a clean slate at the moment of birth. A judgmental, narcissistic art that examines human by his actions. It often has a negative aspect, and in the end, it makes people disgusted with people, and the other person becomes hostile and antisocial. Exactly the opposite of what it should be. By looking from above, he gives the right to political orders willingly or unwillingly. He does not believe that the artist is only a narrator and representative. He wants to give solutions and be intellectual. An artist can be intellectual, but it should be in the essence of art, not in presenting a solution. An artist at the moment of creation should be only an artist. The second view, the view from below. I can consider this kind of look as sublime social art, art that is with people, an art that wants to understand the other and gives the right to human as an individual, an art that talks about actions and is a narrator, but also deals with the causes. It walks on the street with humans. For that art, human immorality is not just a series of statistical data. It is not talking about millions of people. It chooses one person who can be the symbol of millions of people. It believes that human beings are born with no idea of immorality, and whatever happens later is a product of the social situation. Its gaze, after recognizing the other, faces upwards. The artist who created that art looks from below to the top of that tower, which is the home of politicians and the powerful. He pays attention to what happened, but this priority is what happened so that it happened, such as Desica's Bicycle Thief, books by Charles Dickens and Victor Hugo, etc. This view is narrative and not narcissistic, an absolute judgment, because it knows that human is equal to human, and the writer or artist is not supposed to teach the masses of people. He knows that if he experienced the situation of others, maybe he would have the same actions. He does not consider himself superior, and this is a human-like view of others and art. Art that is with people is preeminent. So in general, I can say that in the work of art, narrating is enough. And the spirit of another representation is itself an artistic action towards social change and creating a desire for social change. Now we can pay attention to the point that the artist outside of his artwork is a known character who can now act as an active and intellectual human being. Now he can be the thinker who has social action and his voice is heard more. Maybe in the age of media and popular vulgarity, his cry will not be raised, but he must shout. The artist is responsible for the situation, even if it is not heard. Let's shout and not be heard instead of being passive. The artist cannot be the narrator of everyone in the world of art. But outside of the art world, he can try very hard to be the narrator and supporter of all. For this to be effective, the artist, who is probably a conscious person, better analyze all the issues of the world around him. He can organize his actions based on priorities. These priorities can be as follows: prioritization based on the amount of suffering inflicted on a group, prioritization based on group population, prioritization based on being more pragmatic and speeding up the result, prioritization based on personal interest and shared destiny or shared past, prioritization based on the critically of the issue for the planet, prioritization based on being ethical, prioritization based on artist's capability and ability. Now the artist deals with issues according to his priorities. He should not forget that at the same time that he is not alone, he is alone. He is alone because he is the only one who sees the problems of the world with his own mental filter, which is different from each other, like the fingerprint of each person. And he is not alone because there are many people who, like him, with each mental filter, eventually solve a problem. Socially, they think in their own way. An artist like Shahrazad is a storyteller who, by narrating, makes even the most immoral people think and impress. And with this narration, he prevents the irreparable losses that lie ahead. The point is that Shahrazad could not stop these murders and loses before being in danger. She penetrated to the heart of evil and risked her life to bring about change. The artist cannot understand the field from outside, the playground and war. He must be inside the danger, inside the problem, and must first understand it emotionally and understand it rationally. Outside means being outside emotionally and psychologically. Otherwise, there are many artists who created their best works in exile. The artist should know that in the field of changing the social structure, they do not distribute sweets, and he's not supposed to have fun and relax. Changing the social structure is in conflict of interest with politicians and superpower countries. Changing the social structure is easy if we leave aside the political interest of the countries from the current social situation. The reason that the social structure does not change morally and is even on the way to moral decline is that politics does not like the rebel person, a person who wants his right and the right of others and has a firm fist on the steel walls. No politicians like horseflies. An artist is a great horsefly who challenged the power's conventional thoughts and human and his actions and shows the other dear and important to human as much as possible. I'm very happy to have had the honor to speak here.